Federation has ever encountered. Not because they hate us, but because they don't. To the collective, Earth isn't an enemy. It's a resource. A cluster of biological and technological efficiency waiting to be harvested. A stepping stone towards perfection. And yet, they never took it. For all their overwhelming technology, for all their drones, their cubes, their trans-warp corridors, the Borg only ever sent one cube at a time. One at Wolf 359, one at First Contact. One desperate attempt to rewrite history entirely. If they are the optimized apex of cybernetic evolution, why did they fail? Why didn't they send 10 cubes, or 50? Why didn't they overwhelm the Federation the way the Dominion nearly did? Why does a civilization that spans half the Delta Quadrant move with the hesitation of a wounded predator? Because the truth is, the Borg are not unstoppable. They are constrained. Constrained by their biology, constrained by their doctrine, constrained by the very perfection they seek. The Borg don't conquer planets. They digest them. And digestion comes with a cost. A cost that Earth uniquely exposed. In this video, we're going to break down the real reasons Earth survived. Not because of the heroism, though there was plenty of that, and not because of luck, though they did have more than they could share. Earth survived because the Borg's greatest strength was also its greatest weakness. Perfection demands efficiency. Efficiency demands limits. And limits, no matter how advanced the civilization, can be exploited. This is the story of why the Borg never took Earth, and the hidden truth behind the collective's greatest strategic failure.
If you ever fly United and want this dinner to help pay for this trip, you should probably have a United Quest card. Earn double miles on dining and triple miles on United purchases. Plus, earn your way to 70,000 bonus miles. Ain't nothing fishy about that.
The Borg do not think like any power in the Alpha or Beta quadrants, nor really the Delta quadrant either. They have no borders that they look at. They have no territory that they need to defend. No political capital to maintain. No fear of casualties, because casualties become spare parts. To understand why the Borg never took Earth, you have to understand the logic behind their expansion. Because the collective doesn't wage war, it optimizes. Every species, every technology, every vessel is evaluated through a single lens. Does this increase efficiency? Does this bring us closer to perfection? Most empires expand to control land, or resources, or people. The Borg expand to capture processes. The biological, technological, and cultural blueprints of every civilization they encounter. This is where their apparent slowness begins. Assimilation is not a blitzkrieg. It's not a conquest. It's meticulous. It is an extraction process. The harvesting of knowledge, the conversion of bodies into drones, and the integration of entire cultures into a single consciousness. From the outside, it looks like the Borg should be unstoppable. A single cube can overpower star systems. A tactical cube can tear through fleets. And the collective contains the intellectual power of thousands of worlds. But the Borg don't deploy overwhelming force unless it's strategically optimal. To them, sending 10 cubes to Earth is not a display of strength. It's a display of inefficiency. Because a cube is not just a warship. It's a mobile factory, a data archive, genetic processor, a nanoprobe refinery, a transport hub, and a research platform. All in one. Losing one of these is catastrophic. Not because of the drones, those can be replaced, but because of the massive loss of information, biological diversity, and assimilation processing capacity each cube represents. There is no such thing as a spare cube. Everyone is a trillion-credit supercomputer with thousands of years of accumulated data, built not by workers, but by drones repurposing themselves. So while Starfleet sees a cube as a threat that must be destroyed, the Borg see a cube as a node in a larger, optimized system. Too much expansion too quickly leads to instability. Too little expansion stalls evolution. The Borg walk a razor's edge between these two extremes. This is why their incursions into Federation space, even when devastating, appear limited. Because the Borg don't strike at targets of opportunity, they strike at targets of maximum assimilation yield. Species 5618, humans, are valuable, but they are not the only species. They're not even the most strategically important. And assimilating Earth comes with a logistical cost that must be weighed against other targets, other corridors, other expansions. To the Borg, perfection is not reached through speed. It is reached through selective integration, through acquiring the right species at the right time with the right tools, without destabilizing the collective's equilibrium. And that equilibrium is far more fragile than anyone in the Federation ever realized. Because for all their terrifying power, the Borg are prisoners of their own optimization. In their quest for perfection, they created a system so efficient, so highly tuned, that even a small misallocation of resources can cascade into massive systemic failure. A failure that Earth would eventually expose. Hey guys, these videos can take days to weeks of research, scripting, editing, and production. And as a part of keeping the channel safe from copyright, I've started generating many of the visuals myself using AI tools, which increases the cost of making every single video. If you enjoy deep dive documentaries on Star Trek, Star Wars, and everything in between, you can join the Lore Fleet as a YouTube member or through Patreon. Definitely check it out, and if you want to support the channel and help keep these long-form videos alive, hit join or check the Patreon link below. And with that out of the way, let's just get back into it.
Forged in the spirit of exploration, this is legacy. A new vessel carrying an old promise.
The Borg are defined by one act above all others: assimilation. It looks instantaneous. A drone reaches out, nanoprobes surge through a victim's bloodstream, and moments later, another voice is added to the collective. But assimilation is not magic. It's biology, it's engineering, and it's expensive. Far more expensive than the Federation ever understood. Because assimilation isn't just turning a person into a drone. It is the transformation of a body, a mind, and an identity into a fully networked component of an interstellar machine. Let's break that process down. The first stage is infection. Nanoprobes rewriting tissue at the cellular level. That's the part Starfleet always sees: the spreading veins, the eyes dulling, the skin going pale. But that is only the beginning. From there, the body must be stabilized. Metabolism must be recalibrated. Neurochemistry must be altered. The brain must be restructured to handle multi-channel neural input from billions of simultaneous voices. That's not something you can scale infinitely. A drone isn't made in seconds. A drone is processed. Each new assimilation requires cybernetic implant production, neural interface calibration, memory filtering, psychobiological synchronization with the collective, and nanoprobe manufacturing. And all of that has to be done without disrupting the larger hive's cognitive balance. For a single individual, the cost is negligible, but think about a city. a continent, a planet. Suddenly, the cost becomes enormous. Nanoprobes are not infinite. They must be refined, cultivated, and recycled. And they require raw material, biological and technological. Every time a cube assimilates a world, its nanoprobe reserves dip dangerously low, which means a cube cannot simply jump from planet to planet consuming everything in sight. It has to pause, has to rebuild, it has to digest. Assimilation, in this sense, is not conquest, it's consumption. And every organism consumed adds strain to the system. Because the collective doesn't merely absorb bodies, it absorbs minds. Each new drone is a stream of thoughts, experiences, traumas, memories, knowledge, all of which must be processed, categorized, and sorted into the collective's memory lattice. If a cube assimilates too many people too quickly, it risks cognitive overload, a kind of psychic indigestion, if you will. This is why the Borg attacks often look strangely surgical, localized, and selective. They don't take everything. They take what they can process without destabilizing themselves. And this is also why the Borg have historically shown interest in key individuals rather than planets. Locutus, Seven of Nine, the Hansons, scientists, engineers, people whose knowledge could be integrated with high yield and low risk. Taking Earth would be the opposite. A high-yield prize, yes, but one that comes with staggering biological, technological, and cognitive overhead. Assimilating billions of humans in a short time would cause a data surge so massive it could fracture the collective's coherence. The Borg are powerful, but they are not immune to collapse. They must grow at a rate they can sustain. And the Federation's population density, neural diversity, and technological variance make Earth one of the most dangerous planets in the galaxy to assimilate. The real secret is this. The Borg don't fear resistance. They fear inefficiency. And nothing is more inefficient than a target too large to digest, too costly to stabilize, and too unpredictable to safely incorporate. Earth was valuable. But it wasn't something the Borg could swallow in one bite.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock bigger screens and better controls for even sweeter battles. Go play on mobile and PC with Google Play Games. Download now.
Yo, you ever get those ads? You know, the one with the little guys fighting left and right, and numbers and weapons and blasting enemies? And then when you click into it, it's nothing like that. Totally fake.
Sir, you clicked the wrong game. Troop War is real. Exactly like that.
Looks like you really play this game. We also try to get this weapon. Come on, come on. Wow, that's a lot of soldiers. There's so many enemies ahead charging over. Quick, go to left to increase the number of people. There's a super soldier in the back waving at us. Nice.
When Starfleet looks at a Borg cube, they see a warship. A hulking, featureless block of death that shrugs off torpedoes and slices through fleets. But to the collective, a cube is far more than a weapon. It is a mobile civilization, a self-contained ecosystem of technology, biology, and data. And losing one is a catastrophe on a scale the Federation can barely comprehend. Because every cube represents centuries of accumulated processes, thousands of assimilated species, and millions of drones working in synchronized efficiency. Cubes are not mass-produced like Federation starships. They are grown, assembled, and expanded over time. Built from layers of assimilated infrastructure, technology, and the very individuals that were in them. That's the first major misconception of the Borg. They do not have infinite ships. They don't have infinite drones. And they absolutely do not have infinite industrial capacity. Let's break down what it takes to make a cube. A cube's construction requires assimilated industrial nodes, drone labor, nanoforge networks, implant factories, power distribution matrices, integrated computer latticework, and raw biological and technological material from conquered worlds. And most importantly, specialized drones. Borg engineers are not generic units, they are assimilated experts, scientists, architects, shipwrights, technologists, each chosen because their knowledge contributes something unique to the platform. You can't simply replicate this. If a cube is destroyed, you don't just lose the ship. You lose the entire engineering team that was assimilated, their command structure, century of accumulated assimilated knowledge, all of the processing nodes, and tens of thousands of drones trained for specific functions. It would be the equivalent of the Federation losing a starbase, a research station, fleet command center, or a population hub, all at once. So why don't the Borg simply build more cubes? Because a cube is not a product, it is a process. It grows over time, with each new assimilation adding layers of capability, data, and structure. A cube cannot exist without the drones inside of it, and those drones can't exist without the cube. This enforced interdependence means that a cube is irreplaceable. Every cube is a unique composite of the species it assimilated, its architecture, programming, the internal environment. The Borg can build them, but they cannot mass produce them. Not without destabilizing the collective's internal workforce, processing nodes, and resource chain. And that leads to the truth the Federation has never fully grasped. Every cube deployed is a risk. Every cube lost is a wound. And the Borg are not willing to hemorrhage resources for a single campaign in the Alpha or Beta Quadrant. This is why Wolf 359 was one cube, why First Contact was one cube, why the Borg never sent a fleet into Federation space. Because the collective cannot afford a war of attrition. Even with their power, their regeneration, their legendary resilience, the Borg are not built for endless, high-cost warfare. They are built for incremental expansion, for assimilation in controlled waves, for acquiring knowledge, not territory. And if that Borg knowledge comes at too high a price, the Borg don't adapt like Starfleet does. They simply shift their attention elsewhere. This is the heart of the paradox. The Borg are too powerful to waste their power, too efficient to risk inefficiency, too advanced to gamble cubes on a planet they aren't certain they can digest. Earth wasn't just a battlefield. It was a cost, one the collective couldn't justify paying.
Latino families will come together to celebrate the holiday season, but like most Americans, we're feeling the pressure of rising costs, making it harder for so many to afford the basics. Why is everything so expensive right now? We can blame three things. First, erratic and damaging tariffs. On top of the high prices we're already facing, recent economic analyses show that U.S. consumers will bear more than half of the costs of tariffs. Tariffs mean higher prices for everything from groceries to housing, so that's less buying power and puts millions of jobs at risk. Second, indiscriminate mass deportation practices. The Department of Labor warned that mass deportations will gut the farm workforce and push food prices higher while we work to put food on the holiday table. Third, the new budget law includes deep cuts to SNAP and Medicaid, meaning things are about to get worse for working families. The law will reduce incomes for working class people by $800 a year, while increasing income for the wealthy by over $8,000 per year. A recent bipartisan poll shows Latino voters overwhelmingly say the cost of living is their number one concern. Yet, Congress has not passed any meaningful legislation to address these harms to workers.
For decades, Starfleet believed that the Borg could appear anywhere at any time with unlimited speed. Transwarp corridors seemed like the ultimate strategic advantage. Tunnels carved through subspace that allowed cubes to leap across light years in moments. To the Federation, it felt like magic. To the collective, it was simply infrastructure. But like any infrastructure, the Transwarp network had limits, and those limits shaped everything about how the Borg operated. The network was not a highway. It was a circulatory system, a tightly managed series of corridors, hubs, and junctions that required constant maintenance by drones and specialized machinery. Every corridor had an energy cost. Every hub required calibration. Every route needed to be kept stable against the natural turbulence of subspace. The Borg could not simply open a transwarp conduit anywhere and flood the Alpha Quadrant with cubes. The conduits were fixed, delicate, and strategically positioned around regions the Collective considered valuable. And Earth, despite its importance to Starfleet, was not central enough in the Borg's long-term calculations to justify reinforcing those routes. Even when a cube traveled to Federation space, it did so along a narrow supply line. Once it left the network, it was on its own. No reinforcements, no rapid retreat, no logistical support. A Borg cube that emerged into the Alpha or Beta Quadrant did so at a considerable risk. This is the part Starfleet never understood. A transwarp corridor isn't a strategic advantage unless you can sustain the forces that travel through it. And the Borg couldn't. A cube requires constant resourcing. Its nanoprobe reserves deplete, its processing cores heat and fatigue. Its drone biomass must be maintained. A cube can regenerate damage during combat, but it cannot regenerate strategic resources without access to its industrial backbone, the hubs, stations, and infrastructure scattered across the Delta Quadrant. The further a cube moves from the backbone, the more vulnerable it becomes. That is why Borg incursions are singular, not plural, why the Collective sends one cube, not 10, why their attacks resemble spear points rather than invasions. Transwarp allows a cube to arrive, but it does not allow a fleet to operate as a cohesive, supplied, persistent force. And the Borg know this. The Collective is not reckless. It does not gamble. It does not behave like the Klingons or the Dominion, burning through ships and soldiers to overwhelm an enemy. It calculates efficiency, not victory. And a prolonged campaign against the Federation would force the Borg to operate far outside their logistical envelope, with no guarantee of strategic yield. Worse, every cube that entered Federation space had to return through the same narrow corridors if it hoped to rejoin the Collective. A single destabilized corridor, a damaged hub, or a corrupt transit sequence could strand an entire cube, cutting it off from the hive mind and turning it into an expensive liability. Voyager proved this. Its encounters with damaged or fluctuating transwarp nodes revealed how fragile the network actually was. One failure point could collapse entire sections. The Borg were not afraid of Starfleet. They were afraid of inefficiency. A campaign in the Alpha Quadrant was not just costly, it was structurally unsustainable. Transwarp was not a limitless advantage, it was a logistical leash. Every cube that ventured into the Alpha Quadrant was a calculated risk. Every incursion was a test, not of Starfleet, but of whether the reward outweighed the cost of sending a mobile superstructure halfway across the galaxy with no reliable support chain. Earth survived in part because the Borg couldn't get their forces there in strength. Not because they lacked the technology, but because their technology came with invisible constraints that Starfleet never saw. The bottlenecks hidden inside their greatest superweapon. The Borg could reach the Federation, but they could not sustain themselves once they arrived.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock bigger screens and better controls. All for the crown. Go play on mobile and PC with Google Play Games. Download now.
Harold has metastatic prostate cancer, but like you, Harold has stuff to do. He takes Nubeca.
Nubeca is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with prostate cancer that is spread to other parts of the body and responds to a medical or surgical treatment that lowers testosterone. It is not known if Nubeca is safe and effective in females or children. In a prostate cancer clinical study, Nubeca reduced the risk of cancer getting worse by almost half. You and your doctor will decide if Nubeca is right for you. Nubeca may cause serious side effects, including heart disease and seizure. Tell your doctor right away if you have chest pain or discomfort, shortness of breath, loss of consciousness, or seizure. Nubeca can harm unborn babies and cause loss of pregnancy. Use effective birth control during treatment and for 1 week after the last dose of Nubeca. Common side effects of Nubeca were increase in liver function tests, decreased white blood cells, and feeling more tired than usual.
Harold's passions give him purpose. Life changes. What you love doesn't have to. Talk to your doctor about Nubeca.
To Starfleet, the idea that the Borg didn't simply overwhelm Earth has always felt impossible. If one cube could do so much damage, imagine 30 or 40. A fleet of them emerging from a transwarp conduit above the planet. It would leave no survivors and no hope of resistance. So why didn't the Borg ever do it? Because the Collective does not behave like a conventional empire. It does not measure victory in territory gained or battles won. The Borg do not conquer for pride. They do not invade for domination. They don't care about glory, intimidation, nor revenge. They care only about efficiency. Every drone, every cube, every nanogram of energy is allocated according to a brutally simple question. Does this action increase the Collective's total efficiency? This is where Earth becomes complicated. Humans are valuable. Their adaptability, creativity, and resilience make them ideal candidates for selective assimilation. But Earth itself, the full-scale assimilation of an entire planetary population, is an extremely high-cost endeavor. Assimilating Earth would mean assimilating billions of minds at once, billions of neural patterns flooding the Collective, billions of bodies requiring conversion, stabilization, and cybernetic integration. The Borg could do this, technically, but the cost would be enormous. A planetary assimilation event creates a shockwave of data, an avalanche of biological and psychological information that must be processed and integrated. This places immense strain on the Collective's coherence. Too much data too fast can fragment the hive mind and reduce the efficiency across thousands of light years. The Borg do not fear resistance. They fear instability. And Earth presents exactly that risk. But the real reason Earth has never been hit by a full-scale invasion goes deeper than biological overload. It goes all the way into the Borg's long-term strategic doctrine. The Collective does not commit overwhelming force unless the reward justifies an overwhelming cost. Humanity is valuable, but humans are not the Borg's primary strategic target in the galaxy. They've encountered civilizations far more advanced, species with more unique capabilities, and technologies more transformative than anything the Federation possess. Earth is important to Starfleet, but to the Borg, it's simply one node among thousands. And yet, every time they came here, they risked more than they should have. Wolf 359, First Contact. These weren't invasions. They were surgical strikes meant to harvest key individuals and key technologies, not to cleanse, not to occupy. The Borg wanted Locutus. They didn't ultimately want Earth. They wanted information, not domination. They wanted a path into Federation's defenses, not a planet to level. A full-scale invasion would have required long-term occupation, massive assimilation processing, continuous reinforcements, securing supply lines across tens of thousands of light years. And for what? A species they could extract value from selectively, without risking instability. The Dominion occupy worlds, the Klingons hold territory, the Romulans manipulate entire sectors. The Borg does not do this. They assimilate what is useful and ignore what is not. They strike where yield is highest and cost is lowest. Earth is dangerous precisely because of its scale, its population diversity, its psychological variability, its unpredictable resistance, its technological integration. It is a world that can't be absorbed cleanly without risking the Collective stability. And so the Borg did what they always do when faced with high-risk targets. They adapted. They tried a single cube, then a temporal incursion, then infiltration, then technological subversion. But they never committed the one thing people always imagine, a total, overwhelming invasion. Because total invasions are what inefficient empires do. And for all their terror, the Borg are not inefficient. They're cautious, selective, and they are precise. Earth survived not because Starfleet was stronger, but because Earth was too costly to conquer in the first place. A target too large, too chaotic, too strategically expensive. The Borg never took Earth because Earth was never meant to be taken. It was meant to be harvested. And that harvest demanded a different approach, one that would lead the Collective down a far stronger and far more fragile path.
David, the movie.
I
great adventure.
I will not be.
David, in theaters this Christmas.
Feel more confident with the 2-in-1 ED plus testosterone treatment through Hims. This daily dual-action pill includes prescription strength tadalafil for longer-lasting erections and to help you feel younger, stronger, and more energized. Plus zinc to naturally support your testosterone levels. Hims is 100% online, so you can enjoy convenience with discretion. See why 73% of users report having more spontaneous intimacy with daily treatment. Get your edge back with ED plus testosterone support. Start today at hims.com.
The Borg believe that individuality is a weakness. They say it openly, broadcast it proudly. They consider free will an inefficiency, a flaw, a limitation that perfect order sweeps away. But what the collective never anticipated, and what they couldn't have, is that individuality is not a weakness. It's a weapon. And it is one weapon the Borg struggle to counter. Every species the Borg encounters presents a different neurological architecture, different biochemistry, different emotional structure, different cultural logic, different forms of resistance. To the collective, each of these differences must be understood, processed, and incorporated into its hive mind. But some species resist assimilation, not through shields, not through weapons, but through sheer cognitive incompatibility. Humans are the most obvious example. They're chaotic, unpredictable, emotionally volatile. Their minds do not settle easily into external control systems. They rebel even when they have nothing to win. They resist even when resistance is futile. This makes them uniquely troublesome for a civilization that relies on predictable patterns of integration. But humans aren't the only problem. Vulcans, with their layered consciousness and rigid mental discipline, present assimilation difficulties. Betazoids have telepathic sensitivities that interfere with the collective's neural pathways. Androids and synthetic intelligences cannot be assimilated at all without specialized adaptation. Species like the Hirogen have instinct-driven psychologies that disrupt assimilation. And species 8472? They weren't just incompatible, they're toxic. The collective doesn't fear resistance in the physical sense. They fear resistance in the neurological sense. The possibility that a single incompatible mind could create instability inside the hive. Because every new drone is a point of vulnerability. Every new assimilation is a handshake between two worlds, and that handshake has to be perfect. If a drone's mind cannot fully surrender its individuality, it creates errors, fluctuations, and anomalies in the collective's cognitive lattice. The Borg call these anomalies inefficiencies. Starfleet calls them what they really are: cracks. Cracks where rebellion can take root, where identity can survive. Cracks where the entire collective can be threatened. Unimatrix Zero proved this. Unimatrix Zero proved this. A flaw in the assimilation process allowed thousands of drones to retain a fragment of their identities. That alone was enough to shake the Borg from within, to create dissent, sabotage, and organized resistance in a civilization that believed resistance was impossible. 7 of 9 proved it too. Her individuality, once rekindled, became a wedge that separated her from the hive mind entirely. And the Borg were unable to reassert control without risking the collapse of her neural integrity. Even Locutus, created as the perfect bridge between humanity and the collective, became a vulnerability the moment Picard's individuality resurfaced. A single mind, restored by emotion and memory, was enough to bring down an entire cube. The Borg pretend that individuality is irrelevant, but their failures tell another story. Some species resist assimilation physically. Some do it psychologically, others spiritually, and some still logically. And those resistances compound. They don't weaken the collective from the outside, they weaken it from within. The Borg are powerful, but brittle. Their strength relies on uniformity, predictability, and absolute control. And every species that disrupts that control forces the hive to adapt, reconfigure, and reorganize its internal structure. Adaptation is not instant. It takes time and processing. And it takes resources that the Borg must divert away from expansion. Earth is dangerous because humanity resists. And resistance, true resistance, is not something the Borg can assimilate. It's something that spreads. It's a virus of individuality embedded inside the collective's perfect order. A threat the Borg can never fully eliminate, and a weakness they will never admit. But one that explains, better than anything else, why the Borg never took Earth.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock rewards with Google Play points. So the more you play, the more you earn. Go play on mobile and PC with Google Play Games. Download now.
The Borg present themselves as the ultimate collective, a perfect unity, billions of voices speaking with one mind. No ego, conflict, no hierarchy. But that image is a lie, because buried inside the heart of the collective is a paradox the Borg never resolved, a contradiction that undermines their structure, their strategy, and their ability to evolve. That paradox is the Borg Queen. On the surface, the Queen seems like an answer to a logistical problem, a single node that provides focus, a voice that gives harmony to billions, a leader that shapes purpose and intent. But the Queen is not a leader created by the collective. She's a patch, a workaround, a late addition to a civilization that was never meant to have a central authority. The collective was designed to be decentralized, resilient, and adaptive. A network without a head, a consciousness that could not be decapitated. But the Queen is a head. She introduces hierarchy, command, and personality into a system built to avoid those things. And that breaks everything. The Queen becomes a single point of failure. She creates bottlenecks in decision-making. She slows the collective's adaptive cycle by forcing every major strategic shift through her own perspective. And she injects something into the Borg that should never exist in a hive mind. Bias. The Queen makes choices. She prioritizes emotion, her own distorted, twisted version of them. She focuses on vengeance, fixation, psychological warfare, even personal satisfaction. We see this in her obsession with Picard, her interest in Seven of Nine, her fixation on perfection as an aesthetic, not just an equation. These are not logical directives, they are preferences. And the moment the Borg gained preferences, they lost something far more important, their purity of purpose. A decentralized hive is fluid, it is adaptable, it is fast. With no central node to target, it cannot be crippled. But the Borg Queen is a node, and every cube must synchronize with her, every drone must harmonize to her frequency, and every strategic action must align with her intentions. This creates a bottleneck the Federation never fully recognized. When a queen is destroyed, the collective doesn't simply lose a leader. It loses a coordinating consciousness, a stabilizing algorithm, a regulating force that keeps billions of drones in sync. The hive mind doesn't collapse, but it stutters. It hesitates, it glitches. A Borg cube can regenerate from catastrophic damage, but a hive mind recovering from a decapitation event becomes less efficient less stable, and more prone to fragmentation. If the Borg truly operated as a pure collective, this problem would not exist. But they do not. At least not anymore. And here's the deeper truth. The Queen exists because the Borg are not perfect. They need her to maintain structure inside a consciousness that became too large, too chaotic, and too self-referential to function cleanly. She is the glue holding the collective together, and the crack weakening its foundation. Because a leader demands loyalty, a hierarchy demands structure, and a personality demands attention. The Queen introduces emotion where there should be none, obsession where there should be logic, desire where there should be efficiency. This is why her strategies often seem reckless, why she risks cubes unnecessarily, why she pursues individuals like Seven and Picard with disproportionate interest, why she gambles with time travel itself. A pure collective would never take those risks. A pure collective would never chase vengeance or poetic victory. Only a Queen would. And by following her, the Borg weaken themselves. The Queen is their greatest strength because she gives them coordination. But she is also their greatest weakness because she centralizes their failure. If the Borg had remained a true hive, distributed, impersonal, and perfectly logical, Earth may not have survived. But the Borg didn't remain that. They evolved into something more human, more emotional, more flawed. They created a monarch inside a machine, a singular will inside a sea of voices, a vulnerability masquerading as perfection. And that vulnerability would become critical in every encounter with the Federation. A decentralized collective cannot be stopped, but a Queen can. And through her, the Borg became conquerable.
Forged in the spirit of exploration, this is legacy. A new vessel carrying an old promise. Every generation has its flagship. This one is yours. Coming to Star Trek Fleet Command.
Ready, set, go like 1, 2, 3. Coming in hot, I guarantee. Never say quiet, I got that thing. Gotta turn up the heat, gotta raise my feet like. And you know I'm the realest. Never see it done, so you put it on your wish list. Go ahead, dance there, get the gist. Put it do your thing, cause you can't resist. Ooh. Here we go. Let's go.
To understand why the Borg never conquered Earth, it isn't enough to analyze their doctrine in the abstract. We need to look at the moments when they tried, or came close, and examine what those encounters reveal about the collective's weaknesses. 3 events expose these cracks better than any other. Wolf 359, First Contact, and Voyager's encounters with the Unimetric Zero. Each one of these show a different failure. Each one exposes a different layer of strategic constraint. And each one reveals how close the Borg truly are to collapse. The first real test of the Borg strategy came at Wolf 359. 1 cube, traveling alone, pushed directly towards Earth. A single spear point meant to carve through Starfleet, not annihilate it. The collective didn't bring a fleet because they didn't think they needed one, and also because they couldn't spare one. The cube's mission wasn't conquest, it was retrieval. Locutus was not a symbol, he was a tool, a decoder ring meant to unlock the Federation's defenses from the inside. This mission tells us everything about the Borg. They wanted assimilation, not annihilation. They wanted strategic leverage, not territorial victory. And they were willing to risk 1 cube because losing more would destabilize their industrial chain. Wolf 359 was a disaster for Starfleet, but it was a warning for the Borg as well. A single cube can inflict astronomical losses, but if they cannot hold territory, it cannot occupy space, it cannot create a sustainable front. And when Locutus failed, the entire mission collapsed. The Collective had placed too much weight on a single strategic gambit. A decentralized hive wouldn't have made that mistake, but a queen would. Years later, the Borg returned with another single cube. Starfleet's response was devastating, yet again. But this time, the Collective's reaction revealed something new, an instability at the core of their doctrine. When the cube failed, the Borg attempted a temporal incursion. Time travel is not a sign of confidence. It's a sign of desperation. A species that believes itself inevitable does not rewrite the timeline to win a fight. A species that sees itself losing does. Even more revealing was the smaller sphere they sent into Earth's past. It wasn't an invasion fleet. It wasn't a colonization force. It was a surgical strike, meant to derail a technological inflection point. They didn't want the planet. They wanted a moment, a single pivot in human history that would weaken the Federation before it would become a threat. This tells us something profound. The Borg feared humanity's potential more than its present. And they knew they didn't have the logistics to conquer a fully developed Federation head-on, so they aimed to weaken it before it matured. That's not the behavior of an unstoppable superpower. That's the behavior of a civilization forced to adapt around its own limits. If Wolf 359 showed the limits of Borg projection, and First Contact showed the limits of their strategy, Voyager exposed the limits of their mind. Unimatrix Zero was a glitch, a fissure in the assimilation process that allowed drones to retain fragments of their individuality. That wasn't a rebellion from the outside. It wasn't Starfleet hacking the Collective. It was a structural flaw, born from the Borg's own complacency. Thousands of drones lived double lives, obedient machines in reality, fully conscious individuals in their dreams. A distributed network is supposed to be resilient. It's supposed to correct errors instantly. But the Borg couldn't correct this error. They couldn't even detect it. And once activated, it spread. Drones sabotaged infrastructure. Spheres turned on cubes. Entire sections of the Collective fractured under the pressure of individuality. The Borg's greatest nightmare came true. Resistance didn't come from Starfleet. It came from within the hive mind itself. And this is the real reason the Borg never took Earth. They were too fragile, too overstretched, too dependent on perfect uniformity, too vulnerable to psychological instability and internal rebellion. A full-scale assault on Earth, a world with billions of unpredictable minds, could trigger the very kind of internal chaos that Unimatrix Zero revealed. Humanity wasn't just hard to assimilate, it was dangerous. And deep down, the Borg knew it. Each of these encounters, Wolf 359, First Contact, Unimatrix Zero, shows the same truth from a different angle. The Borg are powerful, but also brittle. They're terrifying, yet limited. They seem aggressive, but they're cautious. A force built on perfect coordination, but threatened by the slightest disruption. Earth wasn't saved by superior firepower. It was saved by the Borg's own structural weaknesses. Weaknesses the Federation barely understood. Weaknesses that will become even more obvious as the Collective begins to stagnate. Weaknesses that lead directly into the final chapter of their decline.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock bigger screens and better controls for even sweeter battles. Go play on mobile and PC with Google Play Games. Download now.
Boost your confidence in and out of the bedroom. HIMS offers a range of personalized treatment plans for ED that also take care of your other health goals. Each option starts with doctor-trusted tadalafil to unlock your full potential. Then add tailored support for testosterone, hair growth, climax control, healthier cholesterol, and more. Upgrade your routine with a once-daily pill that's convenient, discreet, and personalized so you can feel like your best self. Find personalized treatment for ED and more. Start today at hims.com.
For centuries, the Borg were the galaxy's greatest terror. An empire that devoured civilizations, absorbed technology, and grew stronger with every encounter. To Starfleet, they seemed unstoppable. To entire quadrants, inevitable. But that inevitability was an illusion, and the Borg, for all their power, reached a point where they simply stopped. They stopped evolving, innovating, adapting in any meaningful way. A civilization built on perfection, trapped in its own design. This is the Borg stagnation theory, the idea that the collective hit a developmental ceiling it could not surpass. Not because of external enemies, but because of the limits built into the very structure of its hive mind. At first glance, it seems impossible. How could a species that assimilates the knowledge of thousands of worlds ever fall behind? How could a civilization with infinite processing power stop advancing? The answer lies in the nature of the assimilation itself. Assimilation doesn't create innovation, it curates it. It gathers the best ideas from everywhere else, but it never produces new ones internally. The collective doesn't imagine, they don't experiment, they don't take creative risks. They don't tolerate failure. And that's the crucible where true innovation is born. Every technological leap the Borg ever made came from someone else's work. Stolen, stripped, and perfected through efficiency, not creativity. And once the Borg had assimilated most of the major technology paradigms available within easy reach, their growth slowed. Not because they lacked the ability to expand, but because nothing new was left to meaningfully integrate. A perfect system can only perfect itself so far. Meanwhile, every time the Borg assimilates a species, they had to restructure their internal architecture to accommodate new biological patterns, new neural pathways, new cultural imprints. Each addition introduced complexity. Complexity introduced instability. Instability required correction, and correction requires processing power. And processing power is finite, even for the Borg. With every new species they consumed, the collective earned more mental weight, a burden that reduced its flexibility, slowed its responses, and increased the risk of cognitive dissonance at a massive scale. The hive mind that once adapted instantly began to hesitate. Glitches appeared more often, errors persisted longer, entire sub-collectives drifted out of sync. Perfection became inertia. Compounding this stagnation was the rise of the Queen. By centralizing authority, the Borg introduced a bottleneck that made decision-making slower and more fragile. A distributed collective can evolve organically, but a monarchy cannot. A monarchy can only enforce what already exists. And the Queen enforced order, not growth. Even the destruction of key transwarp hubs, the backbone of Borg expansion, revealed the collective's inability to rebuild infrastructure that wasn't assimilated from someone else. Without a species to steal new transwarp theories from, the Borg were trapped within the limits of their existing network. A system that cannot innovate will eventually collapse under the weight of its own complexity. And the Borg were collapsing long before Janeway delivered her final blow. Their defeats didn't come from Starfleet's strength, but from their own stagnation. The cracks revealed at Wolf 359, the desperation behind First Contact, and the rebellion of Unimatrix Zero. All of them were symptoms of the same underlying decay. The collective had reached the edge of its evolutionary path. It couldn't adapt fast enough to maintain stability. It couldn't innovate fast enough to overcome obstacles. And it couldn't restructure fast enough to prevent collapse. Perfection turned into paralysis. And that paralysis, not phasers or torpedoes or temporal paradoxes, was the real reason the Borg never took Earth. Because to conquer a world like Earth, a world as chaotic, imaginative, unpredictable, and deeply individualistic as humanity, You have to have flexibility, creativity. You need the ability to think in the way that the Borg cannot. Humanity could evolve. The Borg could only repeat. Earth didn't defeat the Borg. The Borg defeated themselves.
For pickup.
2 bouncy blowouts.
And 1 Ulta gift card just for me.
You didn't think he did this all by himself, did you?
For decades, the Borg were held up as the Federation's ultimate nightmare, a technological abyss into which individuality vanished. A future where freedom was erased and resistance was, by their own declaration, futile. But the truth is far more complex. The Borg didn't fail because the Federation was too strong. They failed because the collective was too rigid, too optimized, too convinced of its own perfection to see the weaknesses forming in its foundation. Humanity never defeated the Borg in a war. They didn't outgun them, didn't outnumber them, didn't build stronger ships or better weapons. What they did was something far more dangerous. They endured. While the Borg refined themselves into a closed loop of predictable efficiency, the Federation embraced unpredictability. It embraced creativity, embraced improvisation, chaos, emotion. All the things the Borg dismissed as flaws. Those flaws turned out to be advantages. Where the Borg could not innovate, the Federation could. Where the Borg feared instability, the Federation thrived on it. Where the Borg's hierarchy pushed them towards stagnation, the Federation's diversity pushed it towards evolution. Humanity kept changing, kept adapting, kept imagining futures the Borg had no framework to anticipate. And because of that, the Borg's greatest enemy was never Starfleet's firepower. It was Starfleet's nature. The Borg believed that unity meant conformity. The Federation showed that unity could come from individuality, from millions of independent minds pulling together, not because they were linked, but because they chose to be. This was something the Borg couldn't comprehend, and something they could never assimilate. The irony is that the Borg, in trying to conquer the Federation, revealed the Federation's greatest strength, its ability to grow through difference, not sameness, through cooperation, not control, through imagination, not efficiency. In the end, the Borg were not the Federation's destroyer. They were its mirror, a glimpse of what the galaxy could be if unity were stripped of humanity. An empire of perfect machines that could not survive imperfection. The collective sought to eliminate diversity, but diversity is what saved Earth. The Borg sought to impose order, but disorder is what kept the Federation unpredictable. The Borg sought to end the future, but the future was never theirs to shape. Earth was never spared by strength. It was spared by weakness. Weakness the Borg mistook for inefficiency, but which turned out to be the foundation of resilience. So, in a strange way, the Borg gave the Federation the greatest gift an enemy ever could. Proof that perfection isn't the goal. Growth, choice, change. They are. Resistance was never futile. It was inevitable. The destiny of every species that refuses to surrender its identity for the illusion of order. And in that resistance, the Federation discovered what it really was. Not a collection of worlds, not a fleet of ships, not a political alliance, but a promise that the future would always belong to those willing to imagine it, even in the shadow of the Borg.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock bigger screens and better controls. All for the crown. Go play on mobile and PC with Google Play Games. Download now.
So many Arizonans are struggling. Your donation to St. Mary's Food Bank makes feeding them possible.
Saber swing, or like Mace Windu, just flying through a city on a some sort of air speeder, like cutting spaceships apart with a lightsaber. It's some spectacular action.
Yeah, absolutely. As we mentioned in the last video, it is this kind of enhanced, exaggerated version of the Jedi and their adventures. The whole idea behind this story is based off the crawl from Revenge of the Sith, because it leads right up to that, because it mentions how Coruscant is under attack, all the things that have been going on.
Yeah, it does end.
General Grievous, etc. and so forth.
Yeah, right. It ends specifically with them, again, just getting in their spaceships, going to war.
That's right, exactly. Speaking of, though, it does pick up directly after the end of the last one, where Grievous is in a pitch battle with a bunch of Jedi. Then, of course, we cut to that Anakin Skywalker is being promoted to the rank of Jedi Knight.
Oh yeah, so this is an element that is not in the movies.
No,
he gets his Jedi Padawan braid cut off.
Yes, that's right.
In this animated series.
So
Does that happen again in the new Clone Wars?
I think they skip over that.
Oh my
Actually,
goodness!
yeah, like
that's a pivotal moment.
Yeah, the new Clone Wars, I believe, starts with him his cool floppy mullet hair, I believe.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's where the movie starts. But what I think they really nail about the character of Anakin Skywalker in this is he sucks. Like, I think the Clone Wars, the newer one, does a really good job of humanizing him and making him more charismatic and interesting and thoughtful, and you know, he seems like a nice person. But in this, they really again capture that episode 2 scowl, and they kind of move away from that after he does get promoted. But even when they summon him to be promoted, he's just like, Obi-Wan, you're not my real dad. What'd you even call me for? And he's like, you're being promoted, you dumbass. Well, that's why we called you.
Well, I refuse to apologize. You know, one thing they did move away from the previous volume of this is the clone trooper action. There's very little.
There is that sequence where you see a clone trooper take out a bunch of battle droids, and he keeps picking up weapons and he's throwing weapons.
Yeah, right,
Remember the bit that I'm talking about?
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I think there is more of a focus on the Jedi characters.
Characters with faces.
Characters with faces.
Faces and
like,
motivations.
Yes.
Names.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being a bunch of dudes in white armor with slightly different coloured shoulders.
And that's something they definitely elaborate on more to good effect in the other series. But what I also thought is interesting about this Anakin Skywalker character is
besides that he sucks.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He does suck. Like, he's a bad dude, and they don't really make that much of an attempt to kind of redeem him.
But he's obviously a bad dude.
What
are they doing?
Do you remember the bit when... what are they doing? Do you remember the bit when Padme sneaks up on him and he holds a lightsaber to her throat? Do you remember the bit when he turns up and there's that giant monster and he just kills it? But again, that's the Star Wars universe. You just kill the things that you see. Yeah. He's eating raw bugs at one point. Remember that?
Yeah, and he's
like a monster.
There's some weird characterizations of this. Because I guess he grew up on Tatooine and food was scarce, so he's like, well, I better eat some bugs.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of like Obi-Wan being like, what are you doing, Anakin? And there's a lot of don't eat bugs. Well, provide him with some food then, Obi-Wan.
I feel like Obi-Wan promoted him, recommended it at least, just to get rid of him. And then they're like, guess what? You're a pair. And he's like, fuck.
But I work alone. You absolutely do not. That's not how the Jedi work. It's never how it's worked. There's always been a Padawan system. You know that, Obi-Wan. But you're right. He's like, Don't kill that monster, Anakin. Oh, you've made a big mistake killing that monster, Anakin.
But getting back to the Jedi trial, the cutting off of the rat tail.
Yeah, right.
Going into this, they didn't know what that looked like. They were given the information that he has to go from this to this. So they're like, okay, so we've got to show the Jedi trials. And they don't actually end up showing it in full because they didn't really know what that was supposed to be.
So wait, is this was released prior to
like a few months prior?
Like and they hadn't seen Revenge of the Sith prior to that.
I'm assuming they had access to all the information.
Yeah, right.
About it because
they had the visual dictionary.
But also if you look at like the video game of Revenge of the Sith, which would have been made months in advance.
Yeah.
All the information is in that game. So I think it was out there. There was a bit of a looser grip on it in 2005.
Okay, that explains all the QuickTime events in this animated
Absolutely
series.
It does, yeah. But I like the way that the Jedi trial in this is handled like a surprise birthday. Like you go in and they're like, surprise! Your brain's cut off. Even though, of course, in this, his real trial is fighting a big monster and going into a cave and having a scary vision and then ignoring it. So that's the real trial, isn't it?
That's right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, many famous Jedi have done that, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I do find it interesting, though, the element of the story that he goes and he becomes the savior of this native population.
They're very much akin to like a Native American population, but they also sound Italian. Have you noticed?
I didn't notice that.
They're all like, manja, manja. Eat of them bugs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Look, all I'm saying is their alien language sounds an awful lot like...
And I guess also, like Italians, they start off lithe and thin and cool, and then they turn into horrible monsters from all the spaghetti that they
That's
eat.
exactly correct,
happens?
yes.
Yeah. I think that element of the story was the most interesting to me. I mean, they mostly kind of sideline Obi-Wan for the Anakin stuff, but again, I'm not really that invested in him because I don't like him.
Right, yes.
Like, at all.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that the way he resolves that situation is he takes a dark turn and he crushes that guy from the Techno Union. Speaking of, have you seen that Techno Union video?
Really?
I'll put in a clip.
Okay then.
Introducing Grammarly, like you've never seen before. Your all-in-one writing essential. Today, we're checking out Proofreader, a gem of a tool for notes, proposals, emails, and everything in between. Proofreader goes beyond just spelling and grammar. It helps elevate your writing by refining structure, clarifying your main point, and improving overall flow and logic, providing instant feedback, smart suggestions, and more. You decide what stays and what goes. Total control, zero guesswork. And that's just one of Grammarly's full lineup of writing agents. Writing that's clearer, sharper, and more you. Grammarly's Proofreader makes it easy. What's next on that to-do list?
Take back control of your erections and optimize testosterone through HIMS. This daily dual-action pill includes prescription strength tadalafil for longer-lasting erections and to help you feel younger, stronger, and more energized. Plus zinc to naturally support your testosterone levels. HIMS is 100% online, so you can enjoy convenience with discretion. See why 73% of users report having more spontaneous intimacy with daily treatment. Get your edge back with ED plus testosterone support. Start today at HIMS.com.
But yeah, I think the storyline to me, which is the most interesting, no, it's not the 3 seconds of the Wookiee planet that we get in this.
Sure.
It's the Coruscant invasion and the idea that the Emperor, was not the Emperor at this point, that Palpatine is manipulating this whole situation to get himself captured, to manipulate Anakin Skywalker and the Republic and whatever, so to give himself more powers. And I thought that was something that maybe it would have been good to see more of that in the movie, but I think this did a really good job of handling that and also highlighting some Jedi which aren't your main people. I mean, you've got your Mace Windu and your Yoda and that, but Shakti again plays a huge role in this. Again, we mentioned this last video, has multiple deaths across multiple mediums. I think you called it the Kenny of the universe, I think, in the last video. It also does like souped up ability stuff like Yoda dragging down starships and pushing them away and things like that. Something that they sort of do in the movies. Well, they had Rey kind of grab a starship in the recent one, but that's more of a kind of a video game kind of thing.
It kind of is, yeah. There's even a sequence in this one that's very much kind of platformy, where you see Anakin Skywalker kind of like
do a series of flips.
A series of flips and lightsaber swipes kind of up a building. And again, this particular Clone Wars universe does feel like it's been built for people with not a particularly long attention span.
Us.
Yes.
I really enjoy when Grievous gets into Palpatine's office and he wrecks all the troopers and the guards.
Yeah, right.
Because they're not force-powered.
I'm sort of surprised that it wasn't Ian McDiarmid doing the voice of Palpatine.
Al-
Because he's bang up for this sort of stuff.
Absolutely he is. Well, Sam Witwer does it now if Ian McDiarmid doesn't come back to do it.
Oh,
Sam
is that
Witwer,
right?
who of course turns up in multiple Star Wars things, including Force Unleashed.
Mm.
But I also really enjoy the moment where Shakti, as they're running from Grievous, she just quietly ties his cape to a train, and then he just zooms off.
There's some weird slapstick in this version. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like there was more than in the previous volume. There's a moment where C-3PO reveals his shiny new paint job.
With
and it's
sexy music?
With sexy saxophone music. Oh, I'm sorry, jizz music,
Yes,
as they
that's-
call it in the Star Wars
Which
universe.
is much sexier, for obvious reasons.
That's right.
There's even the moment where there's a hammerhead, I think they're called Ithorians, and we blast the room that Grievous is in, the corridor, to kind of get rid of him, because they've got multiple bloody throats or whatever, that's why they're able to do it. And Palpatine's like, I heard. I'm like, that's a decent joke in this. There's like a little moment of levity, yeah. Okay, now I just want to point out that I saw the thousands of comments in the last video where I said, why don't you just crush General Grievous?
Oh,
Like
so
a
you
tin
can't do that?
can.
Okay.
They do-
Were there any comments about how I constantly call him Mace Window?
There's
Because
a
I'm
few of
going to
those.
lean into it, if I'm honest with you. Clearly it's some sort of speech impediment, and I'm just going to go with it.
Yeah.
That's what he was killed from. All Jedi are named after the
thing that befall them.
The portal that they were hurled from to their death. So he's Mace Window.
Yeah, exactly. Emperor thrown down a Death Star shaft.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Anyways, I just want to acknowledge that I did see those comments, and it does offer an explanation in this, and I know it has in other mediums, that he uses tactics of intimidation and speed to kind of throw the Jedi off so they can't ever get a really good line of sight on him, and they can't kind of get their composure to crush him.
I see.
And the reason Mace Windu is now I'm doing it! And the reason Mace Windu is able to do it is because he's calm and he's not intimidated, so he can just do it. But at the same time,
his wallet says very focused Force user on it.
but at the same time, though, I just think that's total bullshit. And you could just crush him. And the way that people kind of justify it is also...
You can hit it with a train.
You can hit it with a train. Like, it's a dark side move if you crush somebody.
Yeah, it's poor form.
Yeah, and the reason Mace Windu can do it is because he kind of dabbles with the dark side. Like, his style of fighting is kind of very aggressive, which is unusual for a Jedi, but he's managed to walk that line without going over, right?
He learned Terras Kasai at Cobra Kai.
That's right, exactly. But at the same time, I think if you had a room full of Jedi, you could easily just do enough force pushes and force crushes to even just bring the corridor around him and smush him in it. But again, people saying that it's a dark side power. Yoda decapitates 2 clone troopers in Revenge of the Sith, and he's the best one. Like, he's the best one, and he does it. And look, I know that
He feels bad about it afterwards.
Yeah, I know he does, but it's also like, that's for defense. Well, so's this.
Yeah, right.
Because he's trying to kill you, you should be able to kill him. Do you know how General Grievous dies? Obi-Wan shoots him with a gun. Is that not a dark side ability?
Not even a Star Wars blaster, just a regular gun.
A regular old
He bought
gun.
it at Walmart.
All I'm saying is I acknowledge the explanation for why it's believed that you cannot kill him that way, but it doesn't make any sense.
The real reason...
I stand by it.
The real reason is he still needed to be alive in 3, and they hadn't filled any of the backstory, and they're just like, just have him be in a few episodes of this.
Yeah.
It's fine.
That being said, I think he's really well used in this.
Yeah.
I think he's great. I think he's fun.
You see a little bit of his training from Count Dooku.
Count Dooku, that's right, yeah. I also just want to mention that shoots him with a gun. What's the difference? Is what I'm saying, Mason.
Yes.
There's no difference.
There's no difference.
Is that fine, is it? You can shoot someone with a gun? That's okay? Obi-Wan cuts a man's arm off in a bar. That's fine, is it? That's fine. He leaves a man in a volcano. That's fine, is it?
They're all
But you
fine.
can't crush a droid that's trying to kill you? What's going on? Am I wrong?
Oh, well, here's the thing.
Am I yelling too much for this?
You're yelling a bit, and also Obi-Wan owes Grievous some money, so that's why he doesn't do it.
Credits.
Yeah.
Republic credits.
That's right.
Anyway, I'm done with that. But look, a lot of people also say that thanks a lot Disney for making this not canon anymore.
It's not even on
You've
Disney
ruined-
Plus.
It's not even on Disney Plus. Yeah, you've ruined the legacy, etc. and so forth. Look, Disney have done a lot of things that I don't agree with about Star Wars, and some things that I like. I won't get into it. But the thing is,
And some non-Star Wars things you do agree with.
that's right.
Song of the South.
Oh God. But Just to be clear, I do not agree with Song of the South.
You can just edit this out.
I won't, though.
Okay, good.
I'll at least leave it in the extended audio edition.
All right.
But the thing is, George Lucas was the one that made this non-canon by introducing the next series.
Oh, yeah, right.
So again, I think the idea was that this was a promotional tool, and then he later wanted to flesh it out with a full-on series.
Yeah, right.
I think that was the idea behind it.
Having not seen, I've only seen selected episodes of the new Clone Wars. Besides the characterization of Anakin, is it a massive?
It's wildly
departure?
different.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
Absolutely. The one thing in particular that's a huge difference is characterization of the clone troopers.
Yeah. Right.
You can tell them apart, and they take their helmets off and stuff.
Sweet.
You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah,
what it's
nice.
all about. Anyway, I just want to say, it feels good to defend $1 billion organization from another $1 billion organization which bought the first $1 billion organization.
For sure.
You know what I mean? It just feels good to be on the right
for
side
sure.
of history.
Absolutely.
I just want to also mention, I like to add the section to the video sometimes, which is like, hey, here's some things that we have to mention out of obligation because if I don't, people will yell at us about it or whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so General Grievous's cough from episode 3. That's a result of Mace Windu crushing him. You mentioned the sexy C-3PO.
I can't believe you didn't mention sexy C-3PO. Oh, we did. We did though.
We did
Cop
though.
that.
And the other thing is, yes, I saw Qui-Gon Jinn's giant fist-sized nose. I saw it, Mason. I saw it. The biggest nose ever committed to animation.
Wow.
Yeah.
You say that, but we've also seen the Star Wars Holiday Special with that weird Pink Floyd-esque animation, and Han Solo's got a massive honker in that.
Is it the nose or the face, though?
I don't know.
I think his whole head looks like a fist. I don't know what's going on there. Yeah.
No, okay.
Anyways, it feels really good to come back to this, and also the support of people to be like, you should come back to this and finish, talking about this series, because I genuinely think that this is one of the best Star Wars things that's been created. Has this changed your mind on that?
No. Look, I think it's fine.
Okay, fair enough.
Did you see it at the time, though?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't see it at the time, so maybe that's it.
Okay.
Did you see it in 3-minute snippets?
The first part I did, yes.
Yeah,
but then
okay,
the
right.
second part, I think... This
Okay,
second part
right.
is in 25-minute chunks.
Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Here's a question, though, for people, and maybe even you, Mason.
Ooh.
There's also a lot of debate, which is better? Is it this version of Clone Wars or the Clone Wars? Not Attack of the Clones, obviously. That doesn't...
That's a bad one. That's a bad movie.
But which is kind of the better version? I think there's definitely room for both, and I think they aim to do different things. I think this is more frenetic in its action and fast-paced and stylized, whereas the Clone Wars is able to tell kind of longer arcs and stories and develop characters. So I think there's definitely room for both.
And I think, if anything, this is probably the perfect one to make non-canon, in the sense that anything now that's non-canon is legends. It's like, well, what? Maybe this is how it happened, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And because it's so,
Maybe Luke Skywalker did fall in love with the spirit of a Jedi who was trapped in a computer on a ship in a book once. That's a story that happened.
Yeah, incredible.
It definitely happened.
Oh dear.
He's a creep, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong.
That's why I went to that island.
Well, I was going to say, why else would he be that hermit guy? But this idea, and the idea that the Jedi are doing way more spectacular stuff.
Yeah.
That's the kind of way a tale gets bigger and bigger with the telling. So sure, it's non-canon, but it still exists, and you can just be like, well, maybe these are the stories that regular folk tell around the campfire.
Maybe this is the story that the kids watch on television.
Yeah.
Star Wars.
Maybe
television.
this is the story of a girl who cried a river and drowned the whole world.
And while she may look so sad in hollow photographs,
There we go.
You absolutely love her when Anakin Skywalker holds a lightsaber to her throat.
And grimaces in the way only he can.
That's right. Anyway, this has been Caravan of Garbage. We do this every week. If you've got a suggestion, more arcs of the Clone Wars, I know we have covered one before, in particular Boba Fett infiltrating the Clone Wars Academy situation.
Right. Yeah.
I'd love to do more of those if you do have a story arc, or just any suggestions in general. Also, if you do want to see these early, we have a service called Big Sandwich, which is like our private Patreon. We do movie commentaries, we do bonus podcasts, early videos, including the Caravan of Garbage videos.
That's right.
Fantastic.
It is fantastic.
I agree. And, of course, our podcast, The Weekly Planet, where we talk movies and comics and TV shows, comes out every Monday and a day early. There! That's enough plugs. And goodbye.
Grab that jam, you guys. We'll see you next week.
Just crush him. Just crush him, Mason. It wouldn't even be a problem.
Right?
If he's running at you down the corridor, just crush him.
Yeah. We'll just crush the corridor.
Crush the corridor. Crush his little weird head.
Right?
He's got a squishy brain in there.
Yeah.
Just crush it.
Pull his bloody belt full of lightsabers. It falls down.
Yeah.
He's nude then. He's embarrassed.
Yeah.
Then you crush his head.
Then shoot him with a gun.
Shoot him with a gun.
With Google Play Games, you can play unlocked. Unlock rewards with Google Play points. So the more you play, the more you earn. Go play on mobile and PC with Google Play Games. Download now.
Let's fuel up, Limu. Lots of people to tell about customizing and saving with Liberty Mutual. Those are mine.
We just want everybody to know at the top of this episode of Caravan of Garbage that you are all responsible for this series of films we are looking at.
Oh, people voted for this, right? They demanded it.
Demanded it.
Wow.
We're going to start with the first three. We're going to see how we go.
Yep.
Of course, beginning with Transformers 2007, and if people could leave a like, that would be fantastic. But before we get into the movie itself, I just want to get a little bit of background on your love for the Transformers franchise, Mason. Mine is undisputed. I'm the biggest fan in the world.
My goodness.
I don't have to prove my credentials.
Wow. Growing up, I loved Transformers. I don't know, it was just, the cartoon was just a...
There was a cartoon?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there was a 30-minute ad. Maybe that's what you're thinking of. For Transformers toys. But I love the Transformers toys. Some were kind of cheap and tacky,
Sure.
but some were, like, design-wise, just incredible. And I got as many as I could, but the one that I probably loved the most, and I still have a few laying around my house, is Optimus Prime. You know, because he's obviously, you know, strong and brave, but he's also selfless, and he's caring, and he's compassionate.
Sometimes
and
he's
most
dead.
importantly of all, he's a bright red mid-1970s cab-over-engine White's Freightliner. Obviously, because the only true mark of a real hero is you got to have a signature look.
So true.
And you know, for years as I was growing up, I remember, you know, people would be like, "There's a live-action Transformers in the works." So exciting, right? Oh my God, I'm gonna get to see Optimus Prime on the big screen. And then I remember
He's going to wave to me, Nick Mason.
when I went into the cinemas, and I remember he first rolls up into that screen, and I remember the entire audience stood up as one, and they went, "Oh my God, a Peterbilt 379? Are you kidding me?" Actually, that's not true. That didn't actually happen. But at the same time, I can tell you within my heart and soul that if Optimus Prime in the movies looked like Optimus Prime in the cartoons, I would forgive all the nonsense. I would watch the 15 hours of Transformers movies, whatever it is, and I would...
I mean, there are nods to it in other films and whatever.
Look, and I would forgive the majority main characters that are just screaming lunatics.
Yep.
I would forgive the fact that all the Decepticons look exactly the same.
Yeah.
I would forgive the fact that you can't tell what's happening in any of the action sequences because everything is happening all the time.
I would argue a lot of those issues are lessened in this first movie.
Oh yeah, for
this
sure.
This is very watchable.
It's pretty watchable.
Yeah.
But again, if I would forgive all those if Optimus Prime looked like he did in the cartoon. But he doesn't. He looks like a Monster energy drink. That's what he looks like.
Yes. What about if they made Megatron change it to a little handgun?
Oh, speaking of that as well, I don't know if you remember, there was a teaser trailer for this movie. It's a Mars rover, and it's surveying the landscape with its camera, and then you see it's knocked over, and then the silhouette is very obviously Generation 1 Megatron.
Yeah, right.
Like the one that does turn into a gun. But in this, what is he? He's a weird rusty skeleton.
Well, they did change his look a little bit due to some fan outcry. They changed the face, but I don't think it's any closer to the look. You can't deny like how great the special effects are in this movie.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
I mean,
technical perspective.
Yeah, I do
sure.
want to get into the design elements of this film that I don't love as much. But yeah, it is an absolute technical marvel, which hadn't really been seen at the time. And one of the first things I noticed about rewatching this for the first time in years, because these movies are exhausting and I try to stay away from them, is that the sound design is amazing. It's so, like, the clinking and the clanking and the way that they work in the original sounds from the 80s TV show, you know, and all those
But
kinds
there's
of
also
things.
so much of it.
But again, I
There's
think that's
never a quiet moment
But
in
I
this
think
movie.
that's something that kind of isn't so bad in this one. But you know that idea when at the start when that helicopter rolls in and they're like, what kind of helicopter
That's a great
is this?
action sequence.
It's fantastic. And when it transforms and you get that original sound, it just starts mowing people down. It's so good.
Yeah, if only the rest of the movie were like that, but it's not.
And I also like some of the little changes that they made, like they've got a little holographic pilot or driver in the vehicles, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's something that's probably happened in various incarnations.
Sometimes it's a hologram, sometimes it's like a pop-up, like a crash dummy man that comes out of the seat.
Like from Men in Black 3, that movie I don't think you've seen.
No.
Might have been 2. I guess we can talk human characters because that is the majority of this film.
Yep.
So Shia LaBeouf is a teenage boy.
Yep.
He's as golden as the day is long. He just wants a car and a girlfriend.
Why have you opened by talking about the sidekick and not the main character, Megan Fox's Michaela Baines?
It is kind of baffling that she's not the main character.
She's like capable and skilled, and she's got a character arc and a backstory that is something, because she had a dad in prison and that's how she learned her skills.
She's fitter, I think.
She's definitely fitter.
She can outrun him.
She makes the choice at the end to be like, we're going back into the battle kind of thing. The movie should be called Michaela Baines and her sweaty, flailing sidekick.
Well, there's the thing about a lot of these Transformer movies, and Bumblebee is the exception also to a lot of
for sure.
about, including the Optimus Prime problem that you have. But there's 3 main characters in these movies. There's stoic military guy.
Yep.
There's stuttering, insufferable idiot. And that's a lot of people.
Yes.
And then there's chicks. Like, that's kind of the breakdown, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I feel like in a lot of situations, maybe even Michael Bay wanted, chicks to be the main character.
Sure.
But he felt like, well, it's a movie about cars and it's about guns and shooting or whatever. So
and boys loves Transformers.
And people won't be able to accept that. So I'll just shunt her off to the side.
Yeah.
And then I'll just make some idiot the main character.
And eventually, like, she does leave the series, which we will talk about in a later movies. The story behind that. But on the whole, I still find this one, there's a bit too much going on. It's too long, I feel.
Oh, yeah.
For the things going on.
And yet, aside from Bumblebee, it's the shortest of the Transformers movies.
Baffling.
Right?
Because you've got the Scorpion chases Tad Hamilton and his friends through the desert, which, by the way, I think would make a great movie by itself. Being stalked by a Decepticon through the desert. Like Pitch Black-esque.
Like Predator style, yeah.
Exactly. You've got kind of Shia LaBeouf dicking around looking for glasses and getting wrapped up in this plot.
And then, being pursued by John Turturro.
Yeah, that's right. And then you've got kind of boring government hacking satellite crap, where you're just looking at feeds of signals and shots of planes taking off and flying through the air and mainframes and all this kind of shit. Just like sweeping shots of the military. Take that out, please.
Oh, 100%. Of those 3, that one should go. But here's the thing, though. It can't go because Michael Bay gets all his military equipment for free if he does some military promotion. So,
well, that's right. Exactly.
But you can't get rid of the cars because you get free. Yeah. Apparently, they got 200 free cars.
Yeah,
in this movie from General Motors.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And they trashed a lot of them. Anything that's not considered an army drill, which they use for this movie, he pays for all the ammunition and the explosions and all the fuel and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. So if you're thinking your US tax dollars are going to waste, I mean they are, but just not for this.
Sure. Bumblebee, obviously in the cartoons he was always a Volkswagen. In this he's a Camaro.
I saw an interview with Michael Bay where he's like, he will never be a bug. It'll look like Herbie the Love Bug. I'll shoot myself before I
was just going to say Herbie, like, who remembers Herbie?
Nobody. Well, when was Herbie fully loaded?
Maybe it was the previous year. I don't know. But that's not the reason. It's the reason is General Motors gave you all the free cars.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the reason that was given for Optimus Prime not looking like he did in the cartoons is because apparently they wanted to make Optimus Prime the largest and most imposing Autobot.
Yes.
And the
10,108 moving parts.
Oh my goodness, that's too many. And the reason that he couldn't transform into the cartoon classic model is because that would mean the robot version of him was too small, so they needed a bigger truck.
Sure.
And he was apparently on record as saying, we're not going to do anything dumb like size changing in this movie. Which makes a lot of sense, except when you consider that the whole plot device of this movie is like a cube the size of a house that shrinks down to the size that a flailing man...
Of an American football.
Exactly.
So you can get a touchdown for America.
And even then, maybe if you're like, well, the plot device can shrink, but nothing else can shrink, put his legs in the trailer then. Again, which you didn't give him. I will never give up on this.
You could have made him 100 feet tall with that trailer.
Right?
Well, it's funny you should mention that because they wanted to make him bigger, and this was the difference. If they did the original design, he would have been 20 feet tall. With the changed design, he was 22 feet tall.
Worth it.
So you really feel it, don't you?
Worth it to turn him into a Guy Fieri truck, absolutely.
Yeah, that's
You're
it,
100%
yeah.
right.
Who, by the way, he does a lot of great charity work.
Seems like a
Gets
very
a lot
nice
of
man.
flack. Hopefully he's not cancelled the week that this goes out. These designs, and again, this is a problem later on because they're much harder to distinguish. With their spindly crab faces, and they're just, I'm talking about Decepticons specifically, they're just grey monsters just kind of jaggedly running about.
And it's difficult to determine in any given action sequence which ones have been destroyed, which ones are still left, where they are on the battlefield, because they all look the same, and they can all turn into anything.
Yeah.
Which is a difference from the cartoon where every Transformer was assigned a specific vehicle mode and they couldn't change out of that vehicle mode.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, if a Decepticon wants to be a tank and then become a police car and then become a helicopter, they can just do it. So oftentimes you're like, did that guy die or is he
a different guy?
It's a different guy.
It's also confusing with the merch as well, and also the names of the characters in this, because they use some of the Constructicons, but then Devastator turns up in the next movie and those get destroyed in this. Also, apparently that fighter jet, which is taking out the fighter jets above the city, that's a pretty amazing sequence. It might not be Starscream, it might be just somebody else. That's also behind the scenes
I
stuff.
have a note here, and it's pretty simple, so you'll be able to keep up.
Okay.
Soundwave was going to appear in the film, disguised